Hey everybody, this is Country Echoes. Today I'm going to be discussing my experiences with bioactive setups. So in short, a bioactive or vivarium style setup is like putting a small ecosystem into a glass box. And for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to be using my Leachianus's bioactive setup as an example for today's video. So some key components that are going to be included in a vivarium or a bioactive setup to make it what it is include lighting, good humidity, plant growth stimulating substrate, drainage layer, your pet itself, microfauna, and living plants. So what I'll do next is run through and point out each one of those categories inside of this terrarium: the lighting, the plant medium, the microfauna, the macrofauna. I'll just go through and tell you where all these things are in my terrarium so you guys can kind of get a feel and a look of how this would be set up. So I'll begin by showing you the drainage layer of my terrarium right here. It's very important that you have a drainage layer within your vivarium or bioactive setup, because that's going to allow, when you water or spray your animal's enclosure, if you have an animal in it, because that's not necessarily a necessary element, but that the water drains down into the drainage layer, and down in the drainage layer there'll be a small water table, and that's where your microfauna are going to breed and kind of chill out a lot, because it's really humid down there, good habitat for them. The type of medium I'm using for my drainage layer is a mixture between plastic egg crate and gravel. This gravel is mainly for looks right here, and back in there, I can't show you because it's way back in there, but is the plastic egg crate. I'll leave a link in the description to what that is if you don't really have an idea, but it's just kind of a false bottom type. There's many types of false bottoms you can use in drainage layers. Kind of a metaphor I use to describe the purpose of a drainage layer is you kind of have, like, you have your plants right here, the potting medium, and then the holes at the bottom of the pot. You have to make sure that you have proper drainage, or your bioactive or vivarium setup is going to plummet, and without the drainage layer, your microfauna are not going to have a good place to breed. Alright, so the next element I'll show you right here is your microfauna. Your microfauna are going to be your decomposers of your terrarium. They're going to be eating on the poo or dying plant matter, any type of mosses, anything that can, organic matter honestly, that can break down. They're going to come up to the surface, if there's poop in the cage, and that'll be a good indicator that it's time for you to get in there and clean up a little bit. They're going to spend most of their time in more drier, like lower humidity terrariums, sort of like my Leachianus. I keep in between like a 60 and 70. They're going to be down under the soil just a little bit, but right here I have my springtail culture right here. It's just a really tiny one, but as you can see, it's doing pretty well. So when I need to add some springtails, I just put a syringe in there and suck them up and spit them back out into the terrarium. So those are very important for a bioactive setup. That's really the defining feature to a bioactive setup, is the decomposers that will break down organic matter and just kind of make it like a miniature ecosystem, because insects and isopods like springtails and microfauna are very important to a successful bioactive system. So next is probably one of the easier elements to a bioactive setup is the live plants. As you can see here, I've got some Hypoestes, this pink polka dotted plant, and some Sansevieria. Living plants really thrive in vivarium type setups because obviously you're adding quite a bit of water, so you can really put some tropical plants in there. And these plant roots and dying plant matter can be great for the microfauna, and the plants are also going to hold the humidity up. And as you can see with the bioactive setup, this polka dotted plant just seeded one day, I guess, germinated, and these plants, these little baby plants, started rooting out, and I didn't have to do anything. That's kind of the beauty of a bioactive setup. You just kind of let it run its course. I could have made the choice to pull those little plants up, but it looks super pretty and they just kind of appeared, so I was pretty happy with that. And I got this moss that kind of volunteered into here. I seeded it and it took a long time to grow, but it definitely has done pretty well right there. I've got some more mosses going down there and some grass down here. So that's kind of the beauty of a vivarium bioactive setup, is honestly just the actual beauty of it. You can plant all kinds of natural plants, and plants will spring up whether you want them to or not. But that's one of the cooler elements. So the next element right here is the type of soil I use. I use a mixture of Lugarti reptile substrate, Eco Earth, and sphagnum moss, along with some other stuff that I've thrown in there, including these big magnolia leaves here in the back. Great food for the microfauna, just so you know. But it's a very great humidity holding substrate and dries out quickly enough to the point where there's not like fungus is growing everywhere, but as you can see, it's pretty fertile and does a great job sustaining plant life. And finally, the lighting. Lighting is obviously a very crucial factor for your bioactive setup. Otherwise, your plants are not going to do well. You're not going to have your mosses growing or your grass or your plants growing in the direction you want them to, or grow at all, honestly. And here I have an Exoterra, 2 Exoterra, I believe 15 watt natural glow lights. They don't have any UV in them. I don't think they have any UVB in them because it's not necessary for my Leachianus, as he is a nocturnal species, but they do benefit plant growth, as it's obvious in here, as you can see within the terrarium. So lighting, another crucial element to a bioactive setup. So here's a quick look at my Leachianus Titan, who I can't really get out because he's in there and I can't fit my hand in there and he's mean. But this is the pet part of the setup, of course, which is more important than you think. The animal itself is going to provide a lot of weathering effects, meaning it's going to be tearing up the cage, causing leaves to fall, causing seeds to be spread around, pooping and using its poop to fertilize the soil a little bit, but hopefully you'll clean up most of it and you just won't leave it in there because that'll cause mold to grow, but you know what I'm getting at. So he's hissing at me. Alright guys, so now that I've kind of run you through how a bioactive setup kind of flows and is set up, actually all the elements you need, I'm going to kind of give you my honest opinion on bioactive setups. That's really what this video is about. Is it something that you want to invest your money into to do, or should you just stick with like what I have here to my right? All these setups are not bioactive currently. Should you just stick to something as simple as that? Honestly, it's really up to you. I know that's kind of a no answer, but I really enjoy the beauty that this terrarium gives me. Obviously it makes my videos look a lot better. It's a beautiful terrarium. The thing with bioactive setups, they're definitely going to cost more up front, in my opinion and from my experience, to set up. But over time, you're not going to have to buy bedding every 2 months. You're not going to have to replace paper towel every week. You know, there's long time cost is going to be less as opposed to maybe one of these cheaper habitats over here, one of these cheaper not bioactive setups. Over time, you're going to have to do less maintenance for a bioactive terrarium than you would for something like to my right, where you want to keep everything very sterile and clean it all the time. With these, obviously I'm spot cleaning, because Leachianus, if you don't know, their poo smells terrible and it's everywhere and you have to clean it. Not to be crude, but that's what it is. So obviously I'm picking that up, which is pretty casual maintenance across the board. But really, a bioactive setup of Vivarium, less maintenance overall for me. With the clay in here, this was kind of a fault on my part. The Leachianus's desired humidity range isn't really high enough to maintain the moisture within the clay that I use to make the background. So I do have to fiddle around with that a lot, repairing it, spraying it. But in most people, like if you're doing this for a more tropical species, or maybe you're just using an entirely different background, you're not going to have to deal with that. That's kind of my fault. So I would suggest staying away from a clay background unless you're like with a dart frog or something that lives in very humid conditions. Another kind of drawback to a bioactive setup that I forgot to mention is the chance of insect infestation, I guess I could say, or just various types of nasty critters you don't really want. Your vivariums are going to attract fruit flies. Every single one of mine have. It's like spontaneous generation. It's just like, oh, a freshly made vivarium, it's beautiful, looks great, everything's flowing. Fruit flies. To my knowledge, they're not harmful, but they're a nuisance. Who wants to be doing this, you know, in their room trying to swat fruit flies all the time? There's also a chance of attracting slugs. They're not harmful, but they are going to eat all your plants away, and I don't think you really want that. a chance of mites. Had mites in my African fat-tailed geckos in a bioactive setup, and from my research, I think I identified them correctly, but I'm grossed out by mites, so I just tore apart the whole cage, saved the plants, and sterilized it and put them in a paper towel for a while, because I'm not dealing with that. Although they were harmless, I believe. So the chance of insects or whatever, creepy crawlies getting into your cages is higher with bioactive. So in my opinion, when it comes down to it, it's really what you want in your reptile terrarium. Do you want something with a lot of stimuli, with a lot of natural beauty, a lot of enrichment for your animal, giving your animal the ability to crawl around and not necessarily exactly natural setup, but a very close to natural setup, and I'm talking about bioactive setups. Do you want to give your animal that type of enrichment, stimulate brain activity and natural behavior, or do you want to put them in a more basic setup, which obviously is not going to harm them? There's thousands, probably the majority of reptile keepers, and I'm doing it too, keep them in more sterile, contained enclosures where there's less things to go wrong. It's really up to you. I really enjoy both of these. There's drawbacks to both. They're just, there's beauty here and there's not beauty there, and I really like the creative process of putting together a bioactive setup and then seeing my animal explore it. I really think that's kind of redeeming and kind of cool to see. My Leachianus and my crested gecko and my gargoyle gecko and my firebelly toad are all in bioactive setups, and they're all very healthy. And my animals in my less attractive setups, just the traditional sense of a setup, are also healthy. So it's really up to you. Thank you guys for watching this video. This is Country Echoes. I'm not sure if I got the chance to thank you guys for 2,000 subscribers. I've been very busy with school lately, not given much opportunity to really upload frequently, but especially when summer kicks back in, which I know is a long haul from here, I'm going to try to upload on a persistent basis. So guys, thank you so much for 2,000 subscribers. I hope you guys enjoyed this type of video, just kind of a opinion and fact-based video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. This is Country Echoes. I'll see y'all on the next one.